Welcome to the Desert Blockchain Camp open house on Saturday, May the 13th, 2023. It's 11 a.m. Arizona time, and I'll stop the screen share. So my name is Jay Carpenter. I'm founder of Desert Blockchain and Desert Blockchain Camps. And if you're not familiar with our format, every second Saturday of the month, we have an open house like this, where people are invited to join us for about an hour of conversation and talk about the decentralized web, Web 3, what's next for decentralization and so forth. And today we're going to be talking about DWeb Stewards, which is a presentation I will be making at the upcoming Governance of Emerging Technologies and Science conference at Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law this Thursday, May the 18th. I will be part of the group that's presenting between 10:45 and 12:15 p.m. and we're going to go through the presentation. This is sort of a practice session for me. So thank you for joining. Thank you for your time and attention. And feel free to reach out to me, Jay Carpenter, JayCarpenter at desertblockchain.com. Now, I would like to mention that we are community supported via Patreon, where we have our Desert Blockchain Citizen program for $10 a month. And we appreciate the support, and you can join for $10 a month. You get added benefits like being able to join sessions like this via Zoom. You also get advanced notices and links to the presentation, and you also establish your place in line for upcoming additional benefits where you'll have priority depending on how long you've been a Desert Blockchain citizen. So we also have on generally the fourth Wednesday of the month, although this month it's going to be the Thursday after the fourth Wednesday. We're going to restart our in-person evening sessions with Rawad Habib, who is a blockchain instructor. He's going to be talking about some introductory blockchain topics, so please tune into that. That will be 7 p.m. on Thursday. I believe it's the 25th of May. So that's what we have going on, and let's get started with going into the DWeb Stewards section and presentation. I will do a little screen share and we'll step through this. So generally, there's been a lot of talk about privacy protections, privacy measures, basically with centralized constructs, many of the social media, the data privacy, the European GDPR, the California initiative, all of those initiatives are attempts to protect our privacy. So the question here is, might there be another way to protect our privacy, and in particular, give us as individuals control over our privacy on a moment-to-moment basis? What might that look like? And I make the analogy here, you'll see these two people shaking hands in front of basically a blind. And what if we had the ability to basically open and close blinds like we would on a window, only in a digital way so that we can have privacy when we need it, be publicly present when we don't need the privacy. What if we had the ability to digitally open and close our digital privacy blinds on a moment's notice? That's the idea behind DWeb Stewards. And the other part is that this proposes putting a trusted agent or steward or entity or person in front of us that would have oversight over, what happens in the privacy mode, so that if for some reason, let's say the people that are in charge of protecting our security, excuse me, deemed that something was going on that they were concerned about, they would have a human that they could interact with to start to investigate what was going on. This is much like having an attorney represent us publicly while we can maintain our privacy. So let me just kind of step through the presentation, and then I'll take it off of screen share and show you a couple of demonstrations, and probably use the whiteboard behind me to draw some additional items of interest and illustration. So this again is we have someone joining us. Hello, Eric.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Jay?
Good. Great that you could join us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So I'm going through the presentation that I'll be giving at the Governance of Emerging Technology and Science Conference at ASU Law next week. And it's called DWeb Stewards, and it's basically a new approach, or a proposed approach, to privacy at the peers with a trusted agent giving oversight in front of us to satisfy regulatory and safety requirements and so forth. So it's much like, I draw the analogy of window shades or blinds that we have on our windows, where we have the ability to open the blinds if we're fine with being, in the public eye, but we also have the ability to shut those blinds if we want privacy at any given moment for any given time. So that's the crux of what we're talking about here. And I'm just going to go through the presentation and then take it off a screen share and show some illustrations. So I think the blinds analogy is pretty good to give sort of a real world example of how this might work. And advance this. So what this brings to the forefront is giving us as individuals choice, while also maintaining responsibility and doing something on a decentralized, primarily a decentralized construct. So we're going to talk a little bit about what are the privacy protection mechanisms in place today, such as the European GDPR, general right to privacy. I can't quite remember the acronym. Also, there's a California set of laws regarding privacy and so forth. And they're primarily designed for some of the centralized constructs that we use, like social media and so forth, to protect our privacy. So that's, we'll talk a little bit about, what are the pros and cons of that. We'll talk a little bit about what could be done? What if we had greater control over our privacy, and we also had a trusted representative or steward that was our public face during times of privacy? How could we do this? What are the opportunities, and what are the next steps and the conclusion? So today's privacy protection is pretty much centralized. And with the centralized privacy protection, there's a natural tension, because we want to be able to use these centralized social media apps and databases and so forth. We want to be able to use those, and in order for us to use them, we have to have access. We have to be able to get in, maneuver around, and so forth. And that creates a whole data trail and so on and so forth. It also is an opportunity for these centralized constructs to start to tailor content to our particular needs and wants, which I want. But it requires these centralized constructs to start to keep information on us and so forth. And we don't know what happens to that information. So because of that, there have been these legal constructs that have been created that create rather punitive consequences if it's deemed that these centralized resources use our data in some sort of way that's deemed inappropriate or not in line with the regulatory realm. And I assert that this is a faulty model, and it's a model, at least in my view, that can never work as it's intended to, because of this fundamental tension. The other part of it is it's opaque, meaning that we don't really know what happens to our data. And that's a problem in itself. Often there are third parties that get access to our data. We don't know who those third parties are sometimes. And I assert that it's corrosive. It's corrosive in that the centralized constructs that we use for what's become part of our lives now are subject to rather onerous punitive damages that might be stifling them from doing things that we might want them to do. We don't know. So in conclusion, I think there's room for something that's innovative, that pushes the control more to the peers, more to us as individuals in a decentralized manner. So here's just a kind of an illustration of centralized constructs. All it takes is one little crack in the wall for somebody to be able to peer in, and all of a sudden our privacy is breached, our data can be exposed, there's hacks all the time on a regular basis. And this is just an illustration of how easy it is, or it can be, for our data to be breached, and things that we think are confidential are all of a sudden, exposed to people that we don't know who they are or what they're going to be doing with that data. So I don't think we have to go into much more detail. This also touches upon the identity spectrum, I call it, because there's a big effort to create viable decentralized identity. And usually we're talking about near definitive identity, meaning these identity approaches for decentralized identity are trying to pin us down so that in a decentralized manner, they always know who we are. What's overlooked is the other end of the spectrum, which is approaching almost complete anonymity. I believe that there are many valid use cases where we need to operate in near complete anonymity. So this proposal for DWeb Stewards is an effort to explore both ends of this identity spectrum. And here is the crux of it. So this is what you see on the right is sometimes it's called a burner phone, which is an Android phone. And this is an actual phone that I bought at Walmart. You can see the purchase receipt where I paid cash. There was no link to me other than maybe the store cameras. I paid cash for the hardware itself. I then walked over to an AT&T store, turned on the phone with absolutely no disclosure of my name, my email address, my other telephone numbers, nothing, just simply plunking cash down on the table, that $100 bill basically. So, you know, this is and there's nothing new about this. People have used burner phones forever. But what if we use these burner phones or these near anonymous phones, and we had a trusted agent that actually went in and did the same process, bought, let's say, 5 of these phones and paid cash for them, and is willing to be the steward of the operation of these phones for, let's say, 5 peer users. And these phones could be basically randomly picked by any one of the 5 peer users, such that even the trusted agent doesn't absolutely know who's using one of those 5 Android phones at any given time. So this, I think, is a project worth experimenting with, and it's my intention to stand up some prototypes using this construct. The fellow that you see whose face is on the picture there, the trusted agent or the DWeb steward, is Professor Gary Marchant, who's the organizer of the Governance of Emerging Technology and Science Conference on May the 18th. And you know, Professor Marchant is definitely somebody who's trusted and would be, I'm sure everybody would consider him a responsible party that could have oversight over these 5 peer users. And there's nothing magical about 5, it could be more or less, but this is just an illustration of how this might work. And you know, the phones could again be randomly assigned on a periodic basis. The phones can be used both for you know, text messaging, phone calls. They can also be used as a hotspot for internet connectivity that provides, I would say, a high degree of cloaking of who the actual user is. So that's it. This is hopefully this Twitter account is still up and running. I don't know. But this is a website, a beginning website, and we do have a toll-free telephone number, 1-877 DWeb directory, that is designed to be a telephone access point and other purposes. So this is a little bit about me and some of my activities and background and so forth, and here is how you can contact me. So I'm going to stop the screen share here and just ask you, Eric, any questions about that?
No, actually, it's really a good overview, and I like what you're pointing to there. I mean, because privacy is really kind of at the kernel or core of freedom, having that privacy. Some of the questions I have, though, there's this constant struggle with people, thought process, if you will, or an attitude that I have is, I don't have anything to hide. Why would I need something like that. And the second thing is how do you balance the struggle with being open and transparent? And maybe it's just, I mean, we expect that of corporations and entities to be totally transparent, but yet we want to remain private. Could you just comment about that?
Sure. So let me hold up two devices.
Yeah.
So in this hand, I have an iPhone,
Mhm.
and I assert that the iPhone is completely transparent and open and is trackable and tracked in many, many ways. And I'm guessing that we could never fully, unless I gave this to somebody, but it could never be fully, anonymous. So,
Yeah.
so that's one thing. This is like my definitive identity device.
Okay.
On the other hand, this Android phone, as I demonstrated, could be bought for cash, could be, the service could be turned on for cash. And basically this, whether you've got a DWeb steward or not, could be, have a degree of privacy and somewhat anonymous. So the idea is, and I think a lot of people do this already, they carry two phones.
Okay.
And one phone is designed to be sort of the public phone. The other phone is designed to be sort of this private phone for communication with wives and so forth. So the crux of your question is, how do you balance this privacy with some degree of transparency, some degree of responsibility? That's where the steward comes in.
Okay.
That's where Professor Marchant, or somebody acting like on our behalf, and I'm going to use the term of an attorney.
Mhm.
So if, let's say, the law enforcement determine that there's something nefarious going on with this device, they could go to Professor Marchant and say, hey, we suspect that something is going on that's adverse. And, Professor Marchant would have the ability he would know that there are 5 users in this cluster that are using this. He would have the ability to shut down all those 5 users and basically start a process of research and investigation, possibly in cooperation with law enforcement, with the national security, whatever it is, to determine what's going on and possibly hold those peers to account. At the same time, as one of the peers in this DWeb Stewards, we would have the ability to pick who is going to be our trusted agent. Are we going to use Professor Marchant? Are we going to use Jay Carpenter? Who are we going to use? So there's a degree of flexibility in this thing. I don't fully know how transparent it's going to be and how it's all going to work. And, is this going to be a good balance between transparency and near anonymity? I don't know until we stand it up and we start to explore the service, basically. And I think it's important to realize that this is a service that I think can be a monetization mechanism for attorneys, for entities that are considered trustworthy, like banks, like telecommunications companies, and so forth. So I think there's a whole business model and monetization mechanism for this that also could be explored. So does that
what
kind
would be
of
the
questions?
Yeah, it does. Thanks for shedding light on that. It does. It also comes down to the trust of the security measures that are taking place, because I can see where if I do right now, I don't know. I know that I'm leaving data all over the place, right? But I don't know what security mechanisms they have. I mean, we've all read about big data breaches and that type of thing. And all of a sudden, all of our information's out there. We didn't even know it was going to happen. This could actually act as kind of our proxy where they don't know our identity, is if I'm picking up what you're saying here. But on the other hand, it could actually be a trusted source for possibly other know your customer, people that do require to know the identity, or that it has been verified in some way that it's a trusted source for other financial institutions, or you're in the you've been in the financial community, that there's a lot of got to know who you're dealing with type regulations.
Exactly.
But,
so hopefully this strikes a balance such that it can satisfy the know your customer rules and the anti-money laundering rules and so forth by having this trusted agent oversight, but also, give us as peers a new realm to have transactions that are overseen, but not definitively tied to us. So, that's the goal. And to kind of, talk about your point, Eric, this is what we're relying upon now. And hopefully you can see that.
yeah, I can.
Here's Jay and Austin and Eric, and we're all interacting with these big centralized entities. And all it takes is one little crack, like right here. And all of a sudden, it's game over. All of our data is out there, passwords, etc. So, this is faulty. And again, we want to interact with these things, and we want it to be as user friendly as possible, so that the services are usable without a whole bunch of friction. So there's this tension that happens with the constructs that I think is basically cannot be really reconciled ever. And so the idea here is, what if we push the privacy to closer to the edge, not completely to the edge, but we've got this entity that's our public face, that's sort of our Venetian blind, if you will, that allows us privacy both in our financial transactions as well as communications and so forth. But they serve as a access point for responsibility. And so I trust this. I trust the ability to, I want to say, when do I close the blind?
Yeah.
When do I close my digital blind? And when do I open it? Yeah. And, that's on a kind of a moment by moment basis that that's another dimension of why I don't think the centralized constructs work, is because, or will ever work, because they can never fully determine, when do I want to be operating in a fully transparent manner, and when do I want, my privacy. So they have to put together all sorts of rules and operational pieces that, try to fit everybody in all circumstances at all times. And this is designed to be more customized, more basically at our discretion and whatever our particular context is and scenario is. So,
And do you envision a way to, I mean, because one side of the argument could be there's just a new intermediary, right, for a transaction, or is there another way to automate all of that, or some trusted network?
don't know.
Yeah.
That's part of the prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
Experiment with how people use it. Do they use it? Do they value it?
I like it, Jay. I like and I like the stewardship role that you're taking, because that's that's pretty cool.
Cool. Austin, you came in late. You have any questions, comments about this, whatever? So the idea is to have give people a this is a burner phone, paid with cash, turned on with cash, the service. This is an iPhone, which is almost impossible to disguise or prevent from being tracked. So the idea is to have, this is my privacy device with somebody who's trusted, who set this service up, and then we could actually randomly pick this device as a user, such that even the trusted agent doesn't know that it's Austin, Jay, or Eric that's using a given device. Now, one comment that's been made on this is, if you've got them both on at the same time, then it can be tracked. So there are some precautions that people would have to use and employ in order for correlation not to happen. But I think that could be handled inside of electronically shielded areas and other measures, and that's part of the prototyping proposal. But
and Jay, are you taking into account is it information, or is it also transactional, like including money?
it could include money.
Okay.
So I think that, and again, it hasn't been stood up, it hasn't been tested, it hasn't been, vetted out, but I think it could definitely include money, where, a wallet could be set up on this Android device, and the wallet is basically overseen by the DWeb steward to serve as, compliance with the KYC, the know your customer, the anti-money laundering, and so forth. But I think all of that's within the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that would, the transfer of value via the privacy device, I think is totally feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that comes into play in something called social recovery. So that if you lose your private key for financial transactions in the decentralized realm, your DWeb steward could act on your behalf to recover those keys, still without divulging your particular specific identity.
There's a strong use case. Yeah.
And I think the other piece is that I think there's a certain danger if an individual tries to act in complete or near complete anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like being out in the jungle without anybody knowing that you're out in the jungle.
Yeah.
To kind of use an analogy, and there's an added level of safety and security, personal safety and security, if I have this trusted agent, the DWeb steward, that knows at least that I'm part of the 5-group cluster that's using these devices, if any one of the five has some sort of problem or issue, the DWeb steward could start to act on as a safeguard for our personal safety. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
can you talk a little bit about the tech involved? I'm just curious as to like the platform and that type of thing. Is that okay? Or
sure. So initially, we will be standing this up on using Cloudflare, which is a cloud service that has some advantages in terms of speed and global connectivity. The other piece that I foresee is using Twilio, which is a robust cloud-based telephony platform that does all sorts of things. And then the third is using the Stellar network as the payment piece, and also for registering identity and things like that. So that's kind of the stack.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Initially, what I foresee as being the initial stack. Obvious, well, maybe it's not obvious, but those particular items don't have to be used for any particular reason over the long term. There could be other things like the Ethereum, network. Who knows? But I think in general, you need some sort of workable blockchain or decentralized distributed ledger construct. You need some sort of communications platform that's robust, like Twilio, and then you need some sort of, hosting service, like I prefer Cloudflare at this point.
Okay.
And all those are, well, with the exception of Stellar, are centralized at this point. But that would be sort of the initial stack.
Thanks.
I also favor, for the web interaction, I like Node.js as the software piece to tie all the pieces together. So anyway, any other questions, Eric?
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be presenting this again on this Thursday, the 18th, at the ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law in the GETS conference.
I registered for GETS, so
Oh, did you?
I'll see you there.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah.
And there's a link in this video to GETS. I would like to mention two other events that are coming up, and I'll go back into screen share to highlight those.
Yeah, I'm going because you recommended it before. Yeah, so.
Cool. Yeah, I consider GETS to be a gathering of some of the top people in the world for policy innovation in the realm of, let's see. There we go. Okay, so here is GETS. This is the schedule. And, again, you can look at the topics and the speakers. This covers artificial intelligence. It covers health, regulatory matters. It covers blockchain, privacy, trust, and there's Professor Marchant and Professor Diana Bowman. All are distinguished scholars, and it covers many, many topics that I think are front and center with what's happening in the emergence of technology and how does it fit with the legacy regulatory realm. So that's one of the conferences coming up. And then the other conference I'd like to highlight is called DWeb Camp. And this will be June 21st through the 25th in the Redwoods outside of Mendocino, California.
Oh, nice.
And I'll just kind of skip over to the people section, but this is an amazing gathering of what I consider to be the leaders in creating what's next for the web. And many of the people here are people that invented the original web. So for instance, you have Brewster Kahle here, who's the founder of the Internet Archive. You have John Ryan, who was one of the original folks involved with Google. His wife, Mary Lou Jepson, who is a TED Talk speaker, has like 1 million views. It's just, here's Juan Benet, the founder of Protocol Labs. It's just an amazing, amazing group. I understand that OpenAI is going to be there, the company behind ChatGPT, and possibly Tim Berners-Lee, who invented HTTP. So I could go on and on, but you can kind of scroll through here and see some of the folks that are coming. Brian Bellendorf, who wrote the Apache server, Brian Bellendorf has been the head of the Linux Foundation as well as the Hyperledger Foundation, and is just an incredible. This is Dan Finlay, who was one of the co-founders of MetaMask. Just amazing folks are part of this group. So,
and what's the format, Jay? Can you say a little bit about that? I mean,
sure.
How it works. Yeah.
Here's Brian Bellendorf, by the way, who actually served as a DJ last year. So the format is people gather on Wednesday afternoon at the Camp Navarro, which is about 2.5-3 hours north of San Francisco. And here's Camp Navarro. So there are numerous talks that happen, like out in the Redwoods. There's activities at night. It's designed to be this, you can do yoga, you camp out in tents, or actually we have a cabin like this, and there is like a hacking hall where there will be a private mesh network set up. And I think the last day they turn off the regular internet and it's all just mesh network. So it's amazing. This will be the third camp. There's Mendocino. But this is an example of a talk. This was on policy. I think it was on the governance of non-fungible tokens. I gave 8 talks last August, but you can see, here's a bunch of people sitting around the fire talking about policy or technology or human items of interest or sustainability. But you have the ability to sit down with somebody like Brian Bellendorf or Brewster Kahle and have, breakfast or lunch or dinner with them, which is amazing. I could spend an hour talking about all the experiences that I've had talking with these people that are luminaries in the whole initial web as well as what's next for the web. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
yeah. So that's event number 2. And then the third event, and this is becoming increasingly difficult to attend, is the Science of Blockchain conference at Stanford University in August. And this is a gathering of what I consider to be the top academic minds in the world on cryptography, on blockchain governance, policy, and so forth. You can take a look at last year's presentations, but Vitalik Buterin was there, and all the real thought leaders were part of this. And there's also a whole bunch of satellite conferences that happen.
Okay.
And basically, this is an opportunity to really see what's on the cutting edge of the technical and the structure of blockchain and cryptography and so forth. So the Science of Blockchain conference last year, they had space for 1,000 people, and they had over 4,000 applications, and I'm guessing it'll be even bigger this year. So so that's it.
And is there any virtual attendance, or is it all on site?
They live stream everything, and you
Okay.
can see the live streams from last year on the 2022 site, but there's not interactivity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I enjoy the most out of these conferences, is the conversations I have out in the courtyard with people, or sitting at a campfire or dinner or whatever. It's like, it's amazing. When I was there in 2020, there were 3 representatives from the Federal Reserve talking about central bank digital currencies. Well, they were talking with some of the professors at Stanford as how do we set up a central bank digital currency for the United States. And I just happened to fall into that conversation by butting into a gathering of people. So, there's all this serendipitous interaction.
Yeah,
it's really
cool.
Good. So anyway, well, Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, I'm going to stop the live stream and turn off the Zoom, and appreciate you participating today. All right.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on campus.
Awesome.
All righty.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.